I'm Rashonda Cade. This is Reading with Rashonda. We are reading The House Behind the Cedars by Charles Chesnutt, and we're going to finish up chapter 15. But something from the last reading has been bothering me. So we're going to go back before we go forward. I don't know if you recall, but Tryon is with Mr. Green and his family eating lunch. The mom, his wife, right, Mr. Green's wife, was trying to barter off her daughters to Tryon, and then learned he was engaged and filed that back. And Mr. Green had talked about how beautiful his wife and daughters were. And I want to think about how beautiful his wife is, and what I've got like weird hairs doing weird. Okay, I'll just stop. I want to go to the passage where Tryon was encountering his wife and thinking about her beauty. So it reads, Mrs. Green greeted Tryon cordially. He did not have the doctor's memory with which to fill out the lady's cheeks or restore the luster of her hair or the sparkle of her eyes, and thereby justify her husband's claim to be a judge of beauty. But her kind-hearted hospitality was obvious and might have made even a plain woman seem handsome. So I was thinking about that this morning, and I love when I read a good book because it keeps me thinking about it. Okay, some books that aren't good keep me thinking about it, but good books keep me thinking and questioning. So I was thinking about this morning, and I felt really bad for Tryon that he didn't recognize physical beauty in Green's wife. Now, we have the whole phrase that her kind-hearted hospitality was obvious and might have made even a plain woman seem handsome, and that is true. Your attitude, who you are, your kindness, those are things of beauty, and it's a blessing for people to be able to see the beauty in that. So I'm glad that at least it seems Tryon recognized that. But just thinking about her physical beauty, her cheeks were not filled out. Her hair didn't have luster. Her eyes didn't sparkle. And therefore, Tryon didn't see the physical beauty of her. And that's what I was thinking about this morning. That's so sad. That beauty equates to youthfulness, because I mean, that's what it's talking about. Filled out cheeks, lustrous hair, sparkling eyes. I mean, you don't have to be young to have those things, but it's kind of a youthfulness thing. And so in her age, he didn't see any beauty in her physical appearance. And I'm glad that Green does, except for now I wonder, does Green see her as physically beautiful right now? Or does he only see the young bride that he married? And that's real nice to be like, oh, I just see my young bride when I look at you. And that sounds really great. But like, no, look at me. See me, who I am right now, and see beauty in that. Because there is beauty in getting older. There's beauty in aging. You don't have to look young to be beautiful. And I know as a society, we are embracing that more and more. We've been embracing it for the men. Like, we have silver foxes and like, ooh, he's aging well. And we rarely say that about women, or we say women are aging well when they look like they're still young, as opposed to men who can look a little weathered and have a full head of gray hair and some wrinkles all across here. And we're like, ooh, that looks good. So anyway, that was on my mind this morning, and we don't have very much left of the chapter, so I figured I had a little bit of time to talk about it, although maybe not as much time as I took. But since I'm just chatting, something about this also reminded me of Diana Gabaldon's Outlander series. I'm working my way through the series. I have one book left after the one that I'm reading. So I think that means I'm on book 7, maybe it's book 8, I'm not sure, but I have one book left after the book that I'm reading. I'm at least 400 pages in. I'm not even halfway through. These books are enormous. I like them. I like them a lot. I'm a big fan of historical fiction, and I really love the way Gabaldon writes, but the books are enormous. But anyway, I'm thinking about that because the main characters, Claire and Jamie, who I talk about so much that if I don't talk about them, my husband's like, "You haven't talked about Claire and Jamie in a while. What are they up to?" But the main characters, Claire and Jamie, have been with each other for over 2 decades and they've seen their physical appearances change. And they still find great beauty in who they are in that moment. They certainly can think back to when they were young, but there are moments where they look at each other in how they have aged and in how life has taken physical tolls on their bodies, and they appreciate that. And I didn't really realize that I appreciated that in Gabaldon's writing until I was contemplating Chestnut this morning and what happened with Tryon. So clearly, I'm a fan of reading, and I think everybody should read literature all the time. And when I say literature, I don't just mean the things you might read in a literature class. I just mean literature that's out there. Pick up a book and read it. I read something yesterday that talked about how great reading fiction is for us because without reading fiction, we drastically lower our capacity for empathy. I totally agree with that because when you're reading fiction, you can feel what other people are feeling and you get to live a point of view that isn't yours. And I don't know that I was enjoying living Tryon's point of view of not seeing beauty in a woman who was aging. And what does that mean for Rena? Like, what is happening next? What is going on? I, I don't know. I've read it before, but I don't remember. So it's all new to me. Okay, so I'm going to start reading because I've just been chatting long enough. So we are in chapter 15. We're partway through. I think we can finish reading this in a decent amount of time. Mr. Green had just been waxing eloquent about how fantastic the Anglo-Saxon race was. Let me go back a little bit and read that. Okay, so Green says, "I give you a toast, sir. The Anglo-Saxon race, may it remain forever as now, the head and front of creation." I'm sorry, I'll keep reading. "The head and front of creation, never yielding its rights and ready always to die if need be, in defense of its liberties." "With all my heart, sir," replied Tryon, who felt in this company a thrill of that pleasure which accompanies conscious superiority. "With all my heart, sir, if the ladies will permit me." "We will join you," they replied. The toast was drunk with great enthusiasm. "And now, my dear," I don't know, but like I feel like they probably have some black servants scuttling about somewhere who they desperately rely on to do things for them, keep their secrets, hold their hands, and they can still say, "May the Anglo-Saxon race remain forever as now the head and front of creation." All right, I'm gonna keep reading. "And now, my dear George," exclaimed the doctor, to change one good subject for another, "tell us who is the favored lady." "A Miss Rowena Warwick, sir," replied Tryon, vividly conscious of 4 pairs of eyes fixed upon him, but, apart from the momentary embarrassment, welcoming the subject as the one he would most like to speak upon. "A good strong old English name," observed the doctor. "The heroine of Ivanhoe," exclaimed Miss Harriet. "Warwick the Kingmaker," said Miss Mary. "Is she tall and fair, and dignified and stately?" "She is tall, dark rather than fair, and full of tender grace and sweet humility." Dark rather than fair. Oh my. "She should have been named Rebecca instead of Rowena," rejoined Miss Mary, who was well up in her Scot. "Tell us something about her people," asked Mrs. Green, to which inquiry the young ladies looked assent. In this meeting of the elect of his own class and kin, Tryon felt a certain strong illumination upon the value of birth and blood. He didn't feel anything like that before, huh? Finding Rena among people of the best social standing, the subsequent intimation that she was a girl of no family had seemed a small matter to one so much in love. Nevertheless, in his present company, he felt a decided satisfaction in being able to present for his future wife a clean bill of social health. Her brother is the most prominent lawyer of Clarence. They live in a fine old family mansion and are among the best people of the town. Quite right, my boy, assented the doctor. None but the best are good enough for the best. You must bring her to Patesville some day. But bless my life, he exclaimed, looking at his watch, I must be going. Will you stay with the ladies a while or go back downtown with me? I think I had better go with you, sir. I shall have to see Judge Straight. Very well, but you must come back to supper and we'll have a few friends in to meet you. You must see some of the best people. The doctor's buggy was waiting at the gate. As they were passing the hotel on their drive downtown, the clerk came out to the curbstone and called to the doctor. There's a man here, doctor, who's been taken suddenly ill. Can you come in a minute? I suppose I'll have to. Will you wait for me here, George, or will you drive down to the office? I can walk the rest of the way. I think I'll wait here, doctor, answered Tryon. I'll step up to my room a moment. I'll be back by the time you're ready. And it occurred to me, like I was thinking Green was a doctor, but I was calling him Mr. Green. So I should have been calling him Dr. Green. Anyway, it was while they were standing before the hotel, before alighting from the buggy, that Frank Fowler, passing on his cart, saw Tryon and set out as fast as he could to warn Miss Molly and her daughter of his presence in the town. Tryon went up to his room, returned after a while, and resumed his seat in the buggy, where he waited 15 minutes longer before the doctor was ready. When they drew up in front of the office, the doctor's man, Dave, was standing in the doorway, looking up at the street with an anxious expression, as though struggling hard to keep something upon his mind. Anything wanted, Dave? Asked the doctor. That young woman's been here again, sir, and wants to see you bad. She's in the drugstore now, sir. Bless God, he added to himself fervently. I remembered that. This your remembrancer of mine is going to get me into trouble if I don't look out, and that's a fact show. So I've been talking about how I've been struggling with the dialect in here, and I have been, but I don't want it to seem like I'm not a fan of dialect, because have you read Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston? It's in dialect, and it is amazing. If you haven't read it, read it. Do it now. It's fantastic. Okay. The doctor sprang from the buggy with an agility remarkable in a man of 60. Just keep your seat, George, he said to Tryon, until I have spoken to the young woman, and then we'll go across the straits. Or, if you'll drive along a little farther, you can see the girl through the window. She's worth the trouble if you like a pretty face. Aw, snap. And so it's okay to think Black women are pretty, but not worthy of your time. And then to be like, take a look at her. She's awful pretty. Tryon liked one pretty face. Moreover, tinted beauty had never appealed to him. By tinted beauty, he means Black women. Black women just aren't my thing, said the man who's engaged to a Black woman. All right. More to show a proper regard for what interested the doctor than from any curiosity of his own. Whatever. I'm doing this because the doctor says, not because I actually want to. More to show a proper regard for what interested the doctor than from any curiosity of his own, he drove forward a few feet until the side of the buggy was opposite the drugstore window, and then looked in. Between the colored glass bottles in the window, he could see a young woman, a tall, slender girl like a lily on its stem. She stood talking with the doctor, who held his hat in his hand with as much deference as though she were the proudest dame in town. Her face was partly turned away from the window, but as Tryon's eye fell upon her, he gave a great start. Surely no two women could be so much alike. The height, the graceful droop of the shoulders, the swan-like poise of the head, the well-turned little ear. Surely no two women could have them all identical, but pshaw, the notion was absurd. It was merely the reflex influence of his morning's dream. She moved slightly. It was Rena's movement. Surely he knew the gown and the style of hairdressing. She rested her hand lightly on the back of a chair. The ring that glittered on her finger can be none other than his own. The doctor bowed. The girl nodded in response and turning, left the store. Tryon leaned forward from the buggy seat and kept his eye fixed on the figure that moved across the floor of the drugstore. As she came out, she turned her face casually toward the buggy, and there could no longer be any doubt as to her identity. When Rena's eyes fell upon the young man in the buggy, she saw a face as pale as death, with staring eyes in which love, which once had reigned there, had now given place to astonishment and horror. How do you go from love to horror? She stood a moment as if turned to stone. One appealing glance she gave, a look that might have softened adamant, when she saw that it brought no answering sign of love or sorrow or regret. The color faded from her cheek, the light from her eye, and she fell, fainting to the ground. Woo! We haven't had a good faint in a while. Look at us. We got a good faint happening in this book now. All right. Well, that is chapter 15 of The House Behind the Cedars by Charles Chesnutt. I'm Rashonda Cade, and this is Reading with Rashonda.